Week number 6 of the NFL season in 2025 is over and in the books, and we're moving on to week number 7. Our big, bold predictions with Ed Cleese is coming up right after this.
This is the Pigskin Daily History Dispatch, a podcast that covers the anniversaries of American football events throughout history. Your host, Darren Hayes, is podcasting from America's North Shore to bring you the memories of the gridiron, one day at a time.
Hello, my football friends. This is Darren Hayes of PigskinDispatch.com. Welcome once again to the Pig Pen, your portal to positive football history. And welcome to week 7 of the National Football League's 2025 season. And as we've done every week this season, Ed Cleese joins me to make some big, bold predictions. Ed, welcome back to the Pig Pen.
Hey, Darren. How was your weekend?
My weekend was fantastic. I had a big Notre Dame win, Pitt won, and Steelers won, of course. Penn State, not so much.
a winning weekend. There you go.
Yeah, right.
Can't beat those. Great.
Yeah. How about yourself?
Great.
Yeah.
So it was a good weekend all around. Yes. A good football weekend. Like I said, we'll talk about it in a minute. Those Europe games really make Sundays so much longer.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're great. The start to finish Sundays, I love it.
Yeah, there's a few themes that came from this past weekend in the National Football League, and before I get into them, why don't we get what your view is on the weekend's games?
Sure. So we talked a lot about in the past, we've cut some teams off the list, and we say who's real, who's not. And this week, and last week, we talked about how some of these outcomes in these games have really started to matter. And we're going to really get into things are happening now that in week 17 and 18 are going to matter in the standings. And so now there's a couple things that I'm not sure if they matter or not, but my antenna is kind of up on 4 different things that I saw from this weekend. So we're going to start, sadly, unfortunately, over in London, where that might be the worst thing that America has done to Great Britain since the Griswolds brought their whiny little teenage kids over in European vacation and kind of made a mess and a mockery of everything. Who did the casting for that movie, by the way? Because those kids, oof. That was the worst thing, I think.
I think they had different kids every single movie, I think.
Yes, and the kids aged, like 15 years. They got like adults to play teenagers that were nothing like the kids before. Shouldn't these kids be older or younger or something? So yeah, the European one was especially the people in London must have been thinking, who are these people? And they must have been
saying something like, "Look, kids, Big Ben, Parliament."
There you go. And I think once again on this past Sunday, the people in London must have been like, who are these people? Like, what was that? That was awful. And it was one of the worst games I've ever seen. And I would say that at this point, my antenna is definitely up. We talked about Disco Inferno last week, Aaron Glenn, that being their highlight of their season. I am now very concerned for them that he might be a one and done. Because this is now, I know everybody says, hey, it's 6 games, it's the Jets. They haven't given him much to work with, which is legitimate. But this is so bad. Like that's not NFL football that they played on Sunday. Fields got sacked 9 times and had 9 completions for negative 10 yards passing and 82 yards for the game. That is like South Carolina upstate against Alabama kind of stuff. That should never, ever happen in the NFL. And they did score somehow miraculously. The only thing that was exciting about that game was the final score was 13-11 Broncos. And I thought that maybe it was going to be a scoregami. So when I looked it up, it was the 3rd time it's happened. So we didn't even get that.
I did the exact same thing. I thought it was scoregami too. I'm like, nobody's ever scored this before. No way.
we didn't even get something cool like that out of that game. So the Jets scored 11 points, and their defense, and really the Broncos defense only yielded 3 of them, because the Jets got 6 of their points, 2 field goals, without generating a first down on the drive. one from a fumble, one from a long kick return. They never got a first down. They kicked a field goal, and then they had the safety in the end zone. So that is eight. I'm good at math. There you go. That is 8 of their 11 points. They had one drive where they actually generated points. And I think Denver is just as culpable in this game as the Jets were. The Denver defense was fine, but the Denver offense was awful. I don't know what were they calling? They were like crazy conservative, and then we're doing goofy things on 3rd and 6. They were running reverses, and it's just it's like it's almost like they were playing around. They almost blew it. That was a terrible, terrible game, and that's like the 4th week in a row the Jets have looked dreadful and unprepared. And at this point, I think you got to be wondering, if it continues down this road, are they going to be able to keep Glenn next year? Because it's horrendous.
Mm. Yeah, I don't know if they're going to be able to keep Glenn this year because
Yeah, there you go.
that's pretty
Right.
pretty bad.
Right. And then another observation I had would have been what happened in Indy. I have been very hard on Kyler Murray over the years. I'm not a huge fan. And, kind of in life, what happens in your absence might tell a lot about your story. And, you watch the Cardinals on Sunday with a journeyman Jacoby Brissett quarterback. And not only did they not look like they were missing Murray, the offense actually seemed to operate better. And then they lost Marvin Harrison during the game. And then they still moved the ball probably better than they have at any other time this year. Yeah, took the Colts right down to the wire. And, it's that just at this point for me is just my antenna's up on, is Kyler, is he kind of done? Is he done in Arizona at least? Have we seen the end of this road for Kyler Murray as a Cardinal? Because it doesn't seem like they even miss him.
Yeah, that was one of the more hard hitting games of the weekend, I think, because both those teams came out and hit. I mean, Brissett was getting pounded, and somehow he was miraculously finding open receivers downfield and throwing the seam passes and everything. But yeah, he's got to be sore today.
Yeah, that was kind of like a theme of the early games. There weren't any necessarily great matchups. Like, there weren't too many games where it was pitting two good teams against each other, but there were a lot of close games in that early window that were kind of exciting. And that was probably number one. That game really went down to the wire. Another observation would be, and there's part of me that hopes not, because this fan base would be so spoiled. But I wonder if Drake May is his arrival is here, because he was awesome in New Orleans. They should have scored way more points than they did. They had some weird calls. They had a couple touchdowns come back. He was launching balls down the field. Guys were running. He was throwing guys open, making plays, converting 3rd downs, coming off of the win at Buffalo. So now I'm starting to wonder, okay, is Drake May's time? Is he going to take this team to the playoffs? Like, I don't think it's a very good team. I think it's well coached. But as we've seen a lot in the NFL, if you have a pretty good coach and a special kind of quarterback, you can win 10 games and go to the playoffs. And I'm kind of wondering right now, I'm not ready to call it yet, but I'm wondering if maybe the Drake May time has arrived.
I think it definitely arrived. I noticed him quite a bit when the Steelers beat the Patriots, and I was glad that the Steelers escaped a game with a win, because May was all over it in that game, and the Patriots very easily could have won that. And the Buffalo game, that was a perfect example. And again, this past weekend, what a great game he is. He is for real. He's going to be a top-notch quarterback in this league.
Yeah, he looks that draft class looks better and better every week. I won't, a little too early to say 1983 all over again, but the 2024 class is looking pretty special. So that's big. And then my last one would be, in the words of Chris Berman, Panthers, are the Panther, like, okay, they're 3-0 at home now, and they can run the hell out of the ball. They have a real, like, Dowdle's been great, but they can just really, they control the clock. They move the ball. They couldn't stop Dallas at all on Sunday. Dak's been sensational all year, and Pickens killed him. But it almost didn't matter, because the Panthers had an answer for everything, and they just methodically moved the ball downfield. Chunk plays too, 8-yard gains, 9-yard gains, 14-yard runs. And then I don't know what to think about Bryce Young. I've kind of thrown dirt on him several times already, and I'm not sure. But I mean, he does seem to made a huge 4th down conversion. and like, hey, you're 6 weeks through the season, you're undefeated at home, you're 3-3. They're playing the Jets this week, so there's really no reason for Panthers fans not to at least be like little playoff, thought bubbles at least bubbling up over them right now. So those are my four, like, not sure yet, but heavy trends in those directions were my number one observations from Sunday.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Young is really coming on. 2 years ago, we were still having the conflict, Young or CJ Stroud. And CJ Stroud was by, head and shoulders above the pack. And it looked like the Texans made the right pick. Now I think these guys are they've sort of leveled out. They're very, very close in their competitiveness as an NFL quarterback. And I think Young's really came on, and CJ Stroud, maybe regressed a little bit from his rookie year.
It's probably a step too far for me to start talking about Young in any other terms than we'll see still. He's so small and not very athletic back there. He doesn't scramble much, he doesn't run much. And I still wonder, about him quite a bit. I think he has a lot to make up. But I think also, as a Panthers fan, probably a year ago at this time, you were getting close to saying, "Hey, look, this was just a bust pick." And now you're not. Now you're at least okay. Let's see more. And that's always for a young quarterback. If you're still in the let's see more mode, that's fine. That's better than let's move on. So
Yeah.
I think I'm still in the let's see more with Bryce Young, but at least we're there.
Well, they're going to have to make a decision in about 6 months because fifth-year option time is going to be coming up for him.
And
So,
I think you're going to have to pull the trigger on that unless
yeah,
things get really bad. But yeah,
yeah, I
but that's
think
what I
you're right.
got.
Yeah, well, I think those are great observations, and I think there's been sort of a resurgence of the tight end this past weekend. I mean, I think Warren for the Colts was unbelievable. He looked like was at Penn State again, and Penn State's definitely missing him this year. That's one big factor that doesn't have, but he was unbelievable. I think Kelsey on Sunday Night Football was unbelievable. Had a great game. Darnell Washington and the Steelers had a spectacular game. First play of the game, 36 yards. And tight ends were just popping up all over the place and having some great weekends. And as good, or in many cases better than some of the wide receivers on their team. And I think that might be the year of the tight end coming up.
Yeah, it might be. And sometimes I think don't overthink it. A guy like Warren was so productive in college. And you sometimes you kind of overthink it because Loveland actually went ahead of him in the draft, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Right. So sometimes you wonder, maybe let's just take the guy that was awesome and not overthink this too much. But yeah, he looks like a special player to me. He's on our fantasy team, so our fantasy team's been terrible, but that was a very good draft pick for us. He's carrying us right
Yeah,
now,
I'll bet.
but a huge weapon for sure.
Yeah, most definitely. All right. Well, the past few weeks, you've been coming up and cutting some teams, and so we have any of those coming up this week?
I'm being very nice. I have a soft heart. So of the six teams we've cut so far, Titans, Saints, Jets, Browns, Raiders, Dolphins, certainly no regrets across the board there. Nobody's inching their way back. And I found there was two that I probably could have added this week, but I'm going to give them each a reprieve. And I'm going to explain one of them why. Um, the Bengals are on hot watch right now, like big time for being on the cut list. I am going to hold off on that, and I'll tell you why in just a minute. The other team that I've already kind of talked about a little bit was the Cardinals. Now at 2-4, I believe, floundering. They have lost their quarterback. It may or may not matter. They've lost James Conner, and they had the worst loss of that you could possibly have ever to the Titans 2 weeks ago, and they're very much on watch. I'm going to give them one more game. This is more of like I should put them out of their misery now, but I'll just let the Packers do it on Sunday. If the Cardinals can come up with a miraculous win and beat Green Bay, then they live to fight another week. If not, they're probably going to find themselves because if you wind up 2-5 in the NFC West with the Rams and Seahawks and 49ers, you are toast. Done. Forget about it. There's no coming back from that. Even at 3-4, it'd probably be iffy, but they would stay alive. So this is a do or die game against a very good team. And the Cardinals are not playing well, or they're playing hard, but they're not particularly good. So they're on hot watch.
Okay,
But no
so
cuts. No, we're still just at 6.
no cuts, but we got a couple on life support, is what you're saying. So
Yes.
we'll have
Yes.
to keep an eye on that coming up this weekend on
Yes.
there. All right. Well, I think we'll probably just want to skip over last week then, right?
No.
No,
No, we've got some
no. Of
we
course you
have
don't want
some
to skip over last week.
we have some big news. We have some big news from last week. So we'll start with my picks from last week. And actually, I think we had the one that was the same. Let me make sure I've got. Yeah, so we'll start at the end. I guess we'll start on Sunday night. We both had the Chiefs bouncing back to take out the Lions, and we both easily, I'd say, got the 2 points on that one. Chiefs Lions had some chances there in the first half, I thought, to create some distance, and they didn't. And it kind of felt like a few little missed opportunities. And the Chiefs sort of kind of dominated the second half of that game. They really were in control. In the second half, I never felt like Detroit had a great chance. And that was sort of a workmanlike, we got to win this one. The Lions, they'll never admit it, of course. They're 4-1 road game against an AFC team. Kind of an easy loss to take. I will say one thing. I love, as my friends and I call him, Coach Meat. I love Dan Campbell. He's great. There's almost nothing not to like about him. Sometimes he gets too cute for me. It's almost like they're so that play to Goff on the it's a clever play, and I guess you could say in a way it worked. But if you've got Montgomery behind that offensive line and you need half a yard, and instead you choose to throw the ball to your quarterback on fourth down, that is where we start to get a little cutesy and a little bit just do your thing. Just play the percentages.
He almost coughed that ball up to the defender.
Yes. So that was it. It was lucky that it worked. And then I guess a little bit unlucky that they got called for the illegal. By the way, did you happen to see this as an aside? That there was and some people thought that this could have something to do with it, the conspiracy theorists out there. A guy put a $5,000 bet on DraftKings that Jared Goff would score the first touchdown in that game. And the payoff was $450,000 if he got it right.
Oh my God.
So,
he had to be sick to his stomach.
So, and the great thing about that was, they didn't throw the flag immediately. There was so it wasn't like he saw him go in the end zone, but oh no, there's a flag, a little yellow thing comes up. So you kind of, all football fans, I think now are trained. As soon as something good happens to your team, you pause, no flags, then you celebrate, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there was like a 60-second pause on this one. They had trotted out the extra point team. So for probably 60 to 90 seconds, some dude out there thought he just won $450,000, and instead he loses $5,000. So insane. So,
speaking of that, this sort of broke his heart because this has got me so many times this year. I think there's more than one station doing it. In between the scores, they have like the little banner, it'll say 1st and 10 or whatever on there. And when they go to change the down, it like flashes yellow for a second. It's like usually like
I think
red
I've seen
or
that
orange.
too. Yes,
and that's where they put up a yellow flag. That catches me out of the corner of my eye so many times during a game. I'm like, what? There's a flag down, because you see that, you think they're going to pop up the flag, emblem on there or whatever, So
don't do that to us, networks.
Yeah. Choose a different color other than yellow. That'd be a good thought.
Yes. So that I had to point that out. That was something. That poor guy. He had a much worse week than either of us. I can tell you that.
Yeah, I'm sure he did.
But I got a 0 for myself. I said the 49ers would win the game in Tampa, and they would really give Baker trouble, and they would hold him to 21 or less. Well, that's a big fat 0 because that didn't come close to happening. Mac Jones was pretty game in that game, and they really hung tough. That was a really good game, kind of like until it wasn't. That, it's 20-19 in the third quarter. It's 3rd and 14, and Baker has that just awesome, ridiculous Baker play. He dodges the sack. He makes a juke. He fights for the yard. He stands up and flexes, and he does the Baker thing. And he's the MVP of the league right now.
Mhm.
It's like it's not close to me. There's no argument. He's the MVP. A long way to go, but if we had to give it out after week 6, it should be a landslide uh, for Baker. And losing Fred Warner, the Niners in the middle of that game doesn't help the defensive effort for sure.
Mm.
But even before that, the Bucks offense is moving the ball without their top 3 receivers and Bucky Irving. So this is just the Baker show. And they look great. And I was wrong on that all the way around.
Yeah, that was a tremendous game. It was so fun to watch. I got a little nervous for you when Mac did throw that early interception, and it set the Buccaneers up for that early score.
Yes,
But
but they bounced back from that. Yeah.
yeah, they recovered quite well for it and made it a great game. But McCaffrey was like insane. I was thinking, oh my God, he's touching the ball way too much. This guy's gonna get broken half. And then, yeah, the whole Warner thing, I'm like, oh, this is not boding well for the 49ers.
Yeah, Bucks are must watch right now. They are that offense, and that guy is really what's carrying them. It's it's,
And,
it's pretty awesome.
and they're ready to get healthy, I think. I think they got some receivers coming back, and the cavalry's coming.
Yep, and they'll only get better. They'll only get better. I was right in your neck of the woods. I told you, Darren, that your defense was
Ah,
going to pummel Dylan Gabriel. He's not good. I mean, I'm not saying this. I didn't think he was good coming out of college. I was not a fan. I didn't think it was a good pick. I thought he went way too high. I just don't think he's particularly talented. I don't know what the skill that Dylan Gabriel has that sets him apart from your average college quarterback, much less an NFL quarterback. So I don't see it there. And then he's a rookie with not a lot of weapons. So it's a bad setup. The Browns offense is a joke. It's terrible. The Steelers had the bye week coming in. They took care of business easily. If the Steelers offense would have been a little more productive in the red zone, that game would have been, 45-0.
or if the DBs and linebackers could keep their hands on interceptions they had, I think they dropped like 3
Right.
of
Yeah.
them.
And yeah, so he had a terrible game, and it probably should have been worse, Gabriel. So yeah, that was just a very easy win. I guess the score kind of at one point it stayed semi-respectable, but not really. That was an easy win. I'm definitely giving myself 2 points there.
Yeah, definitely should. But I don't think Gabriel is as bad as what you say. But when you have open doors on your tackles and you're playing a team that has some pretty good pass rushers, you might be in trouble.
It's a bad mix there. It's bad all around. It's not good. Um, so then I'm going to get 0 because I said that the Chargers would win by 7 or more, and Mike McDaniel will get fired after the game. And so I will give the Dolphins a little bit of credit in that they certainly fought in that game. They didn't lay down. Now they did kind of start throwing each other under the bus after the game, both Tua and Achan, kind of pointing out that certain players aren't showing up for meetings and people are late. And that, of course, is also a veiled shot at the coaching staff, I think, for sure. So the frustrations are mounting there. But on Sunday, they did play hard. They didn't give up when it looked kind of bad. They were down by 13 there in the fourth, and they fought back, took the lead. Herbert just making an insanely clutch, amazing play to McConkey there to get them in field goal range. But even though the Chargers won that game, that wasn't the way I thought it would go. So I'm going to give myself a 0 there. But I will give myself 2 very big points for saying that the Eagles offense would continue to struggle. And it did a lot. Now, they had that very brief window in that game in the second quarter where the offense looked good and they kind of got going. I was like, maybe they're unlocked something. But then they come out in the second half and don't score. And also throw, the not quite a pick six, but it was an interception and a 80-yard return or whatever it was that set up a giant score. So yes, the Eagles offense has problems. If you have problems through 6 weeks, you have problems that aren't just. This isn't just that. Oh, the Eagles will figure it out. They're the champs. They're going to flip the switch at some point. There's no switch now, 6 weeks into the season. And last year doesn't matter anymore. Now, do I think they could get better? Yes, certainly. I don't think this is just like, oh, well, that's it. They're just a bad offense. But this isn't a matter of just like hunkering down or, focus. There are problems there. And they've been very evident all year.
Yeah, I think you were all over that one, and it was exactly the opposite of what I said on my pick because I said that the Eagles would win by 17, and here the Giants
Yeah. So
really put it to them.
speaking of that, I'm because I've deemed myself the judge, jury, and executioner of our contest here. I contemplated whether or not I should, if you predict the team's going to win by 17 and then they lose by exactly 17, I'm wondering if maybe we should go negative 2 points for that or something. But I digress and I will just give you a zero for that. So I wound up with 6 points for the week, giving me 28 total on the season. So we already, on your picks, we already went over those two, the Eagles and then the Chiefs game. You also had the Ravens with Derrick Henry going over 100 and the Ravens beating the Rams. That could be another -2 if we were going to go that route, Darren, because they scored 3 points and
Derrick Henry had like negative 100.
Yes, he didn't do much of anything. And now I still don't understand. I like to look at the odds. I still don't understand how the Steelers aren't bigger favorites to win the North still, because now you just start doing the math, right? You got the 4-1 Steelers and the 1-5 Ravens. Let's eliminate the Bengals and the Browns. Okay. So that's kind of, let's say the divisions between the Ravens and the Steelers. Well, even if you think the Ravens are going to turn it around, I mean, the math is so against them at this point.
But you got to look at the Steelers after they play the Bengals this Thursday, and after that it is like a gauntlet. They have the Colts and they have Detroit and they have Buffalo, and I mean they could lose 5 games in a row in a heartbeat. They got some really stiff competition after this week 7 game.
That's true, but the Ravens, where are they gonna have to get to? I mean, they're gonna have to get to at least 9. I mean, I think the Steelers should feel pretty comfortable getting to 9, right? And now that how are the Ravens going to win 8 more games? I mean, maybe if everybody comes back healthy after their bye and they just go on a run, I guess I can't discount that, but it's shaking. I mean,
yeah, they can't. The Ravens can't lose this week.
There you go. There you go. They cannot.
They can only get better from here.
So you are gonna get well, we'll go to another negative one for you. You had the Titans over the Raiders. That also did not happen. Now, Darren, I hope you got what you were hoping for, because last week you said that you were looking forward to watching that game. So while that game was going on in the farthest corner of my TV that I could get it to, I was wondering if maybe somewhere Darren is suffering through this, like because you talked about how much you were looking forward to that game, and it was not, that was not fun. That was not.
Yeah, that might have been my worst of the. But maybe the Eagles was pretty bad and the Ravens was pretty bad. So yeah, they're pretty.
It wasn't even so much that you picked the Titans to win and they lost, but you seemed to be sort of excited to watch that game. And now,
I did.
Hopefully you've learned your Titans lesson.
And I think I learned my Raiders lesson too, because they weren't exciting even in the
No,
win.
they weren't. And then, speaking of the Titans, farewell Tommy Boy. So wow, the first one to go. So 4-19 over a season and less than a half. So the Titans have made a lot of firings and hirings over the last 3 or 4 years, but I will give them a little bit of credit. Sometimes when you know it's wrong, when you know you messed up, sometimes you just got to pull the plug. And it was pretty clear that Tommy Boy was not working out. Unlike the real Tommy Boy, this Tommy Boy was unable to save the company in the end.
Well, maybe they can call James Franklin, because I hear might be available.
Oh my gosh, that would be something. There you go. No, thank you. But we'll end on a high note for you, because you did have the Seahawks winning over the Jags, and not only did they win, but they were they're actually they are the better team. They're better than Jacksonville, and I thought that was pretty evident. Seattle's defense is really good. Seattle's like the most balanced team in the league. Maybe they are. They're really good on D, and their offenses can really move the ball. I still have some lingering questions about Darnold. when they play games against other elite quarterbacks. But that Smith and Jig was great. Their offense is good enough, and their defense is good, and that's a good team. So you wound up with 4 points. I wound up with 6. That gives me 28 for the year, Darren, and you are now at 27. So we have
Oh
a
my gosh.
change at the top. Look at that.
Oh boy. It was a good run I had
It was a
for
good run. It
five
was a good
weeks.
run because something you should know about me, once I take the lead, I never look back. So here we go.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
we'll see about that because I've got some. I'm pretty confident this
All
week.
right. Who starts this week? I can never
I
remember.
think I think it is me this week that
All
starts
right.
here.
Let's do it.
And well, I got to get my notes up here. Okay. Oh shoot. Some technical difficulties here. Okay, we'll do it this way. All right. Well, I'm going to go back and look at our Jaguars. Jaguars, I didn't think too highly of them last week. I didn't think they would handle against Seattle like we just talked about. But this week, I think they're going to get the better of the Rams in this pretty marquee matchup of two very good teams in the National Football League. It's a game in Europe, and it's going to be a close one, but it's going to be a very close W, and the Jaguars hold fort against the Rams.
Got it. I looked at that one, and that's one I just have no feel for. And I think at this point, I might be done trying to predict what happens over in the overseas games. They never look quite right. It's been a while since I've seen a game over there where I thought this is really good football. It's such a break in routine that there has to be some element to that being legit. But that's a much better matchup than all of the other overseas games they've gotten so far over there. That's two pretty good teams. That should be pretty good. Whether or not Nakua is healthy is probably a big factor in that. But
Yeah,
I how boring to be on a podcast and say I'm indifferent. But I really don't have a feel for that one either way. So I'll move on to my first pick, and I'm going to start with you guys again, except this time it's going to be really bold. And because one of the reasons that I didn't cut the Bengals is because I actually think they're going to win on Thursday night against the Steelers to keep a glimmer of hope alive. And this is a little bit something we've talked about a couple weeks ago. This is more of a law of averages pick than it is to do anything overly negative with the Steelers or positive with the Bengals. The Bengals showed a little bit of life in Green Bay. They weren't close, but they seem to be fighting a little harder. I do think Flacco will be less problematic for their offense than Browning was. He's not going to make the mistakes. He'll at least get them to punt or instead of turn the ball over. Their defense isn't very good at all. But I kind of like a short week. We've got two 40-plus-year-old quarterbacks in a division game on a short week. I could see them both being a little off, a little rusty. And I just could see an ugly game where, it's close. I was going to just pick the Steelers to win a close one, but that's not particularly bold. So I'm going to go all the way. I'm going to say in kind of an ugly game, we're all surprised late in the game. The Bengals figure out a way to break their losing streak, and subsequently give the Steelers their second loss. And maybe we start to see why the Ravens are still in the odds, not that far behind the Steelers, because maybe there's something that's about to happen to shift it a little bit.
That's an interesting pick. The Steelers have a very poor record under Mike Tomlin on Thursday night interdivisional games. Last year, if you remember, they had that snow fest that they lost to the Browns and Jameis Winston. It was like 24-19. They lost that. They've lost to the Ravens multiple times on Thursday night football. They've lost to the Bengals on Thursday night football. But I think it's interesting when you bring up the two 41-year-old quarterbacks. One, I mean, they're both playing on 3 days rest, but one of them traveled from London, moved from one city to another, had to learn a new playbook, and is going on 3 days. And that might be interesting, and has no offensive line really blocking for him very well. So that might be a factor that might come into play on Thursday, but it'd be an interesting one to watch.
It's a risky pick. It could be one of those midway through the first quarter. I'm like, oh my gosh, what have I done? But yeah, that I wanted to be bold on that one.
Yeah, that is bold. Well, I'm gonna out Trump your bold, and I'm gonna go to one where you're not going to be very happy with it because it's a team that you cut. I think the Jets are going to get their first win of the season this week over the Panthers in the Meadowlands at home, and maybe give the gang green a little bit of something to cheer for. But I think they're going to win one in a close one over Carolina.
It's not on my list, but I actually agree. I actually agree with you on that one because at some point you say, okay, they're bad. Are they going to go 0 and 17? And then so you find out, okay, probably not. So where are the wins? Home against Carolina. If you're going to pick the Jets to win at any point this year, this is probably as good as it's going to get. Maybe against Miami later in the year or a couple other games. But if they're going to find those 2, 3 wins that they're probably going to get, you got to come from somewhere. So I think that's actually kind of a wise pick.
Oh,
Um,
okay. All right.
so last week I predicted a coach would be fired. I'm going back to the well. So I am not predicting anything specific in that lovely Dolphins Browns game this weekend, other than the losing coach will be fired on Monday, or if not
Hmm.
Sunday night. Because at that point, I do not know how either survives losing to the other. So that is going to be my pick. Either Stefanski or McDaniel is bye bye after the game. The losing coach in the Dolphins Browns game gets fired next time. By the time we speak next week,
Do either of them have a bye week after that?
they won. I think the Browns. No, wait. I don't think either of them do. I did
Oh,
look that
okay.
up. I'm not.
Okay.
So I did look that up just because that would have made me feel a little bit better about it. But
Yeah, that'd be a real confidence booster if you
because I
lose
guess at
and have
this
the
point,
bye
it's sort of
week, you
like
know.
if it's going to happen during the season, if you lose to the Dolphins or you lose to the Browns, that's probably the walk the plank moment if it's going to happen. So that's my pick there.
Okay. That's not a bad pick at all. Not bad. I am also going to go into that game, but I'm going to go into the gameplay because I'm going to predict that the Browns finally score more than 20 points in a game as
Oh,
they defeat the Dolphins. And you know that their defense is going to, probably shut down the Dolphins offense because they're pretty stingy. And but they're going to score more than 20 this week.
yeah. The Dolphins defense isn't good at all. So you might be right, but I just I can't bear to even process that because I don't think they can do it. If the Browns do that, when they very well may, I think it'll be because of their defense. Maybe they get some short fields or whatever. I just can't see the Browns offense generating legitimate NFL drives right now, even against the lousy defense like Miami. So you might be right, but I think it's going to be generated by their defense. It,
Okay.
it would
Yeah.
be if I way I saw it. So my next one, I've kind of been on this train for a little bit now. Of I won't say doubting the Colts, but maybe doubting the Colts a little bit. And I think they showed a little some flaws on Sunday, and I'm going to pick them to lose out in Los Angeles to the Chargers. It's a little bit of weird travel because if you remember, the Colts were out in Los Angeles a few weeks ago to play the Rams. They got to go back. That's a little strange. Again, they're kind of riding high. The Chargers are very beat up. They didn't look overly impressive on Sunday, but I'm a Harbaugh guy. I think they kind of figure things out. Herbert looks good. That win may have kind of gotten them back on track. And I think they kind of figure out a way to do it again on Sunday against the Colts.
Okay. That's an interesting one, definitely. Now, I didn't go too close to that game, but I'm going to go to one that's another marquee matchup. We have the Detroit Lions, we have the Buccaneers playing each other this week. Two teams that are really uh, showing something in the NFC this year. But I'm going to say that Detroit playing their fourth string cornerbacks is going to play against Baker Mayfield. Doesn't sound like a great setup, but I think Detroit is they're going to score points and they're going to outscore the Bucks in Detroit. But the main thing of this pick is that the teams they're going to go over 55. I think the spread is like 52 and a half. I looked it up today when I was figuring this out over the weekend. I said 55. So I think they're going to bet the over on this one because I think fans are going to be in for a treat with some great offense.
And remind me who you're picking to win.
I'm going to take the Lions on this.
Okay. Well, we're going to be similar on this. I'm not being anything specific with the score, but I'm going to say that the Lions win by 2 or more scores in that game,
Mm.
and that they bounce back big against the Bucks. I would think Baker will play well again. I have no reason to not think that. But the Bucks defense actually hasn't been particularly good, and I think the Lions will be a little frustrated coming off that game where they left a lot on the table in Kansas City. They're so good at home, and again, it's that human nature of the Bucks are 5-1, and you know it just is. It's a slightly less important game for Tampa than it is Detroit, and it's on the road. And I know nobody thinks about it like that. Nobody's consciously going about it like that. But I just kind of think that's what's going to happen. I think you're going to see a 2-score win for the Lions on Monday.
That would be an interesting one, most definitely. All right, I am going to go with my last pick being the Seahawks and the Texans game. I'm going to say that there's going to be less than 35 points scored in this game, and I think the under is there's more than that. So I'm going under the under, and I think that the Seahawks are going to use the 12th man to defeat the Texans in the game.
Okay. Yeah, I was very close to picking an upset in that game, the Texans to win in Seattle, because I really do like that Texans defense, but I really like Seattle's defense too. And then I guess you split the difference there and say, well, I think Seattle's offense is just better. So I would probably lean towards a close Seattle win as well, but kind of lean your way as well with the low scoring there. It's kind of hard to see a whole lot of points in that game, but 35 or less, that's not a lot. So that's your five.
Maybe we'll have another 13-11 game. Who knows?
There. Oh my gosh, please.
It won't be a score-gami.
Oh gosh, goodness gracious! Please don't remind me of that game. So I'm going to end where a team that I've had some success with picking both against and then for the last couple of weeks. The red hot New York Giants. And just like we have seen in the NFL so many times, it's going to go back the other way when they travel out to Denver on Sunday. That Broncos defense is going to get a hold of the Giants and their 2 very interesting, sensational, maybe even rookies, and give them a really hard time. And the Broncos are going to hold the Giants to 17 or fewer points in a Broncos decisive victory. The Giants' offense was good the other night. I'm not sure why it was so good. They are kind of one-dimensional. They don't really have any receivers. Dart does a great job running around, but I think when you're going to get on the road against a ball-hawking defense that really gets after the quarterback big time, nobody gets after the quarterback like the Broncos do. They're going to be able to hone in on the running game a little bit. They're going to give Dart a really hard time. They're going to hold the Giants down, and the anointing of the I don't know, we'll call them the frat boys, whatever they're calling Scattaboo. I will say this: if I was a jersey salesman, boy, I'd love to be a Scattaboo jersey salesman, like on the Jersey Shore right now, because that would be quite. I'm sure they're very popular for all kinds of reasons, but it's not going to be a great day for them out in Denver.
Well, that would sort of hold pattern for the Giants this year, because aren't they having, like, they have an explosive offensive big win and a big depressing loss, and they've been like that. So maybe the roller coaster ride continues with the rookies.
I bet you that happens for them pretty much the rest of the year. And my other guess would be that they might be one of those teams that's significantly better at home than they are. They might have a hard time going on the road, but you know, you're young. Yeah, you have the home crowd, and the comforts of being home kind of fuels you a little bit, and then you get a little flummoxed on the road, like we saw them in New Orleans turn the ball over 5 times in a row. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see something like that again.
All right. Well, got some interesting picks coming up, some interesting games, a lot of marquee games, and might be some things that decide later on in the season how things are going to go, who's going to be on the bubble, who's going to be in the playoffs. We might look back to this week 7 coming up, because there's some.
That's right, Darren. Look, Big Ben, Parliament.
Yeah, right, most definitely. So Ed, I hope you have a great weekend. Enjoy the games this weekend, and we will talk to you again next Wednesday and review our picks and pick for week 8 of the midway point, almost, of the National Football League season.
Thanks, Darren.
That's all the football history we have today, folks. Join us back tomorrow for more of your football history. We invite you to check out our website, pigskindispatch.com, not only to see the daily football history, but to experience positive football with our many articles on the good people of the game, as well as our own football comic strip, Cleat Marks Comics. Pigskindispatch.com is also on social media outlets, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and don't forget the Pigskin Dispatch YouTube channel to get all of your positive football news and history. Special thanks to the talents of Mike and Gene Monroe, as well as Jason Neff for letting us use their music during our podcast.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.